Mike, thank you so much for joining me today on the What is a Good Life podcast. Since becoming aware of your work and even hearing some of your poetry before, I've been very intrigued to have this conversation with you today.
Thank you. I'm glad to know that you've read some of my work and my poetry. There was a time when I was trying to push my poems around people a long time ago, when people would say, "Oh no, not more poetry." I was a teenager and I was writing a lot of stuff, giving them to girls that I would see, or young women I would see, and giving them poems and things, and I'd be like, "Oh." And all these years later, I'm still writing, and people. It's good to put people hear or read my work. I like that. It's a nice feeling.
Yeah, well, I always I'm always attracted to things where I sense that it seems like somebody's lived experience or embodied experience of life, and that's what I was definitely struck by before. Mike, as you're aware, the question that I start this conversation off with is there a question you're exploring as you move through life?
Yes, I like that. The question is, well, I'll start with something. Before I say the question, I've got this idea that there'll be, well, it's true. There's a fact that there'll be a breath before my last breath. There'll be a time that I will die and they'll have no breath, but there'll be one breath before the last breath. And I've thought about that. What do I want to be if I have any awareness? I might not have any awareness of that, but if I've got some awareness of that breath before the last breath, what would I want to be aware of? What would I be thinking? What would my thoughts be? How would I sort of sum up the whole journey? And it was one word, and it's wow. I want to be at that last breath and just wow. It's like the journey is, the journey I've had is complete. But is there another journey? I don't know. But I'll have completed this journey of this body, this breath. Because I came in with one breath and I'll go out with one breath. And I just love that whole concept of there's breath in us every single moment I'm breathing. I sometimes think about breath, sometimes I don't. But it doesn't matter. I'm breathing until I'm not. So there's that.
I'd love to just sit with that for minutes.
Yeah.
There's something stunningly. I don't know why it's kind of so moving, but just even the notion of the breath before the last breath for some reason.
Yeah.
I don't know. To me, it kind of, as you say, I know for your point of view, it's awareness, but even for me, it just kind of sums up so much like a moment of reflection, a pause, an appreciation for something that could be considered so ordinary, in the day to day. As you know,
Yeah.
sometimes we'll think about our breath, sometimes we won't. But it just makes something so kind of ordinary, so absolutely precious, I think.
Yes. That's my philosophy, if you like. You've helped me with this right now. I love celebrating the ordinary. And even in our language, we have the word extraordinary. Everything that we experience can be extraordinary when we look at it in a different way, when we really look at it, when we stop, when we pause, when we think about it. And this last breath story, I mean, I tell some people this. I worked for many years with young people. I remember some years ago, I told a young lad this story about the breath and the wow. And his response was quite unique, and I love his response. It's a bit cheeky. He said, "Oh, Mike, my pal, he's got that tattooed on his arse." And it was, what do you mean? What do you mean he's got tattooed? He said, "Oh, he's got W on each cheek. So when he bends over, it says, wow." True story. So,
I think you're already taking us on the full range of life, Mike, aren't you?
yeah.
But
So from
that's
the start, it's incredible. From the start of my story about the preciousness of life and breath, and he also brings his story in, and it's like, and both
yeah, yeah, yeah,
exist. Lovely. I love that.
yeah.
I love
I
that.
think it's I think it's magnificent, to be honest. The The idea, Mike, for you of almost like a reverence or appreciation of the ordinary. When did that start? Like, was that something that you naturally tended towards?
Mm, yes,
Was this an
I think
evolution of
so.
something, or
It was something in my work that many years ago, before I was a counsellor, therapist, I was working with young people. I'm a youth worker. And I just loved the idea that there was something that just being with young people, offering them a space to be themselves, just seems so important. And that without the sort of judgment, and this is before I even knew the language of therapy, without judging someone and being genuine with them, I could see people light up, just speaking to someone and saying, hello, who are you? And it's like, wow, kids don't get that. They get told what to do. Well, that was my experience at the time, that they just get funneled into this thing that, this world without pausing on someone and saying, hello, and being honest and open. So that's the ordinary. If you smile at someone, I love the idea. Just a smile takes place between one person, and it can offer something to the other person without a language. It's a smile, and I know smiles can be so easy, and also they can be so difficult when we don't feel happy, or our world doesn't hold a smile, doesn't contain a smile, and then someone may smile at us randomly, a stranger, and it can open something. And I know this from the ordinary, just walking down the road and getting on a bus, or whatever. But some people have told me stories that a smile has changed their lives. There was with someone I worked with that was about to step in front of a bus. She was so uh, upset and thought her world needed to end. And she was standing at the side of the road, about to step out. And then this bus was coming up. And the bus driver, I don't know if the story of the bus driver, if he had any sense of what was happening, but her story is that he smiled at me and she stepped back. And so that smile changed her life. And she was sitting with me and we laughed and we smiled and we was like, wow, this smile, I'm smiling with you, you're smiling. That smile, a smile from a stranger changed her life. So the simple things are, I don't know, there was a time I was really upset and angry with the world and wanting to understand everything, and angry with God, almost like shaking my fist at the heavens and wanting somebody to open up, show me a sign, show me a sign. And then this tiny little fly landed on my hand, the tiniest fly, and I just looked at it and I laughed and I got the sign rather than the huge fanfare of angels and the stairway opening up. Like there's an old film with, I think, David Niven's in it. I love that film. Going up to God, or the big bellowing voice. I had the tiniest of flies, little fly landed on my hand. And it was like, wow, that's it. And I saw its little fingers, or its fingers, its little, I don't know what flies have, legs, little
yeah,
legs, just rubbing
exactly.
their legs. It was just like, wow. And it was almost like saying, hello, I'm here, I'm your message. And it was so simple. So I loved that I was looking for something massive and I got something tiny, but there's something massive in the tiny as well, in the smallest.
So much, Mike, of what you're saying just resonates.
Mm.
Really, just on a like the only way I can describe it is on a level of soul. There's even I was in the playground with my daughter a few weeks back where a butterfly let us get really close to it, and it didn't move until it we my daughter I just stroked its wings and it flew away. And instinctively, I just put out
Oh,
my hand, like almost like a someone with a falcon training a falcon, and it did loops around the playground, and then it came back to rest on the top of my
that.
hand.
Oh, incredible.
And
Mark, that's
and it
beautiful.
yeah, it did this 4 times, and is the same thing loops around the playground and back to my hand. And it was quite funny. Then I looked around and I noticed that the parents, other parents and children were looking at me, and they were all sticking out their hand now as if I knew what I was doing. Uh, but but it but
Yeah,
it just like you're saying there with the fly landing on it, it's just it is just seeing the or experiencing the awe in all of it almost. And I don't mean this in some perpetually forced way of it.
no, it happens. It's
But
always
there's
happening.
something you're saying, but there's something you're saying too, and that acknowledgement of a smile in another individual. Like people who listen to the podcast will be aware that I one of the things that I say has profoundly changed my life is saying hello to everyone in my neighborhood consistently, whether I've met them before or
Oh,
not.
I
But
didn't know that. Yes,
the idea the idea of what you're saying there of that smile, I see it so often. And even if I'm in my own little world and somebody that now that I've smiled at numerous times is smiling at me,
yes,
there's something just so like magnificent or miraculous about that engagement.
yes. And it's so simple. I used to do some training workshops, and I introduced them. I'd have it was the olden days with flip charts, and I would just draw a smiley face, the classic smile, the circle with the two eyes and the face. And people would come into the room and I would watch them. They would see just a drawing and they would smile at the drawing. And then, of course, I was using that as my way in, just as a acknowledgement of how important that is. And it was about engaging, how we engage with people. The first thing we do is smile before we say who we are, so our name. We can smile, and we say a lot more in that. I think we communicate something and I look at the opposite of that. If I meet someone who doesn't smile, then something happens in me. It feels like something uh, it isn't right. It's almost something's not alive in some way. To meet someone without a smile for the first time. If I've got an anxiety, my anxiety gets worse. I'm thinking of children, particularly with teachers, and they meet a stern face. So the stern face can offer something else in the body. There's an exchange of something there, an energy that's not a good energy. It doesn't feel healthy. It doesn't feel growthful.
Can you tell me a little just about that sense of something not feeling alive when a smile isn't there, kind of to accompany that
Yeah.
engagement or that moment of meeting each other? There's something that sounds really beautiful in that.
Mm. Well, I work as a therapist, so people that share their stories, they talk about their pain they have, and they carry it in their body. So there's something that can be carried in the body that is not, it doesn't feel, it feels it needs to go somewhere, but it gets stuck. And I think when we are in the flow, we're not stuck. So if someone is stuck, then it's helping them get back into the flow that they remember. They've not always been like that. So maybe a question is, and it's a lovely solution focused question, is so when did this say, when do you feel better? Or tell me when you felt better. So people can then reflect on, well, I've not always carried this. I used to be a lot happier, and they can tell the story. But something closes that down in them. So to help them recognize when did that close? When did that smile become or that feeling become that alive feeling become dead in some way inside you? So there's a way of exploring through people's experience. So if I've experienced someone that I'm a bit apprehensive of and they then smile, immediately my anxiety goes. But if they don't smile, my anxiety will rise again. And so all my story of my stuff is almost like depending on this other person to be received. So if they don't smile, then all my difficult stuff becomes alive in me. And it's like, wow, it's more awkward, and I struggle and I panic and I go to a place of not thinking I'm right in some way. And it's the power of someone being able to acknowledge that by their smile that you're okay, that I'm okay, and you're okay. And there's
Hmm.
a whole thing about that in therapy. I'm okay, you're okay. But there's something that's very simple, just to feel okay with someone. A smile allows me to feel okay when I receive a smile.
It's even the acknowledgement of when you're working with kids and the significance you noted in just saying like, oh, who are you, almost like, or tell, some
Yes.
some invitation to share of oneself and create that space where people can be, that they can feel free to be themselves. That and a smile, like, I don't know, there's something in all these interviews that I've done, because I've interviewed nearly 300 people around this question
Yeah.
between the podcast and private interviews.
Incredible. Yeah.
There's something about just the simplicity of life sometimes. And I'm not saying that's easy. Like, I'm sure you see in your field, particularly as well, just the difficulty and the struggle. And we can look at the world too and see
Yes.
plenty of difficulty and struggle. I'm not trying to pretend that doesn't exist. But I'm also struck by just some of the really simple and
Yeah.
extraordinary ways we have of connecting, really.
Yes. And I put that into my writing, Mark. When I write, I'm not an academic at all. I don't have that. I don't have that interest in other people's experiences particularly. I like to find something that acknowledges my experience of what I'm experiencing in the world. So I look for writers that talk about that, not about other things. It has to make sense to me. And I remember when I was studying as a youth worker again, well, it's all about me being a youth worker, but they would talk about theories of things, and there were lots of books about stuff. But I knew that if I couldn't sit in someone's living room or a settee and explain the theory that I've been learning with someone who's not got a lot of money, there's maybe some problems, they're living in an area that's pretty poor, and if I can't explain the theory to them, then the theory doesn't make sense. It's not required. So I go in and they meet me, and it's, hi, I'm Mike from the youth club, and I'm here. And I'm worried about Johnny or something, or Sarah, and we talk that way. And I found that people open up that way because they're not meeting someone that has a barrier. We meet on a human level. And like going way back, I used to smoke, and many years ago, when I used to smoke with the kids. I mean, I'm older, so this was like in the sort of in the early 80s. The best way to get a kid down from the roof who's shouting and screaming and hating the whole world is to say, "Hey, do you want a fag?" And they come down. And we sit and have a cigarette. That's the best. It
Yeah,
always works.
yeah.
There'd be a rage in them by saying, come on, to have a fag." All right, come down. So but I
But
don't do that
what
now,
is
and I don't smoke.
right? But if you were still smoking, maybe. Uh,
Maybe
but
not.
Mike, the that sentiment though, when did that hit home for you? Like, just because that resonates deeply with my own interpretation of life. Like, I see we've put the experience of life, we've made it almost subordinate to theory, if a theory sounds good. And just the way you're describing that there,
Yeah.
if a theory kind of falls apart on contact with people or real
Yeah.
life, it's just much better to lead with the just our humanity, essentially, I guess. When
Yes.
when did that kind of
Yes.
become quite clear to or apparent to yourself?
But it was clear from the beginning, like clear from me even as a kid, from
Right.
my own background. I was aware of there was a yeah. I came from a family that I mean I won't go into details, but there was a lot of struggle, so that we kept hidden in the family. So I'd be out there in the world, and everybody's saying, "How are things?" And we'd say, "Fine, everything's fine," but I knew that it wasn't fine. But I didn't really know that. I just thought this is how the world is, that we hold something. Uh, we just get on with things. And I think when I learned about theories of things, it informed me. But it didn't help me have any access to what to do or how to be in some way. It was just, I was still just having to deal with it. I could read a book about it, but there was still this thing at home uh, or this thing inside me. So there was something about accepting that and yeah, just finding my way with it, to be talking to other people and sharing it, realizing that everyone has these things. There's the theory of who we are is just a story, but we can find that with just talking to someone and then having something more real, and then discovering that, yeah, this is a part of a life's journey, and knowing that every single time that I've thought I can't go on, I've went on because I'm here. I'm 63 years old, but I know there's been maybe a million thoughts that I've had at times. I've thought, I don't know what to do. I can't manage this. I don't know what to do. And I might look at a book and try and understand it, but it's whatever's happened, it goes, it passes. So I'm interested in the. I mean, I'm not a religious person, but I'm interested in spirituality. And there's some religions that have some things, echoes of things that feel right. And I was born as I grew up as a Catholic, so there was a lot in there that I will let go of, but there's still a lot in there that still feels okay. There's a richness of having faith in something bigger, something more. So, I mean, I took that into my life. And then the Buddhist way of being was really interesting because it was the struggle, to acknowledge the struggle. We can find peace. And I used to think, you needed to find peace first before you could deal with the struggle. But no, you just acknowledge the struggle and whatever I'm in. And I thought, yeah, I've been doing that. We've all been doing that. Anybody who's still alive has been doing that. We've acknowledged the struggle and we've kept going with it. But we've not taken it as a way of being. I'm thinking of the Catholic faith. They gave all that struggle to one person that did all that for us in some way. But that doesn't make sense because we were still experiencing it. So people then felt guilty that uh, Jesus was meant to have taken all that pain. Why have I still got it? So there's the guilt. It doesn't make sense. But to acknowledge the struggle, yeah, we are struggling. There's a struggle with life, but to acknowledge it. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm sort of gone off at a tangent there.
Now, this podcast is just full of tangents in general. Not saying this conversation, but
Brilliant. Yeah.
this this is uh, this is beautiful. There's something to it, I guess, in terms of I really, it kind of baffles my mind when if one of us comes to this idea that, oh wait, acceptance of this struggle is going to be paramount, and it kind of baffles my mind that for a long time I would have held on to the idea that I have to fix it or resolve it
Yes.
or eradicate it before I could come into peace or acceptance. And you can kind of
Yes.
just, even just the way you were describing that there, it just kind of illuminated that kind of bind that we're, I think the predominant thinking of our culture, like, I'm from Ireland,
Mm-hmm.
just even Western Europe, I'll generalize or whatever. It's, there's such a bind in that thinking that if you don't see that, you can just know from your own experience and my own experience just how difficult that is. Like, and as you're saying, it's not. I don't think it. This doesn't create some utopia of being or some absolute sacredness
No.
in action all the time. But my God, does it make it
Yeah.
less tense?
Yes. I like what you've said there when you said sacredness in action. I believe sacredness is in action all the time, but I fall out of it. I miss it. I think there's
Yeah,
a
yeah, yeah,
divine flow. And I didn't know that until I realized it, that I used to think the flow had stopped or that thing. I maybe had moments of experiencing that. And then I realized it was me. It's always there. It's always
yeah.
there. But it's how I find my way to it again. So there is that thing that if it's the sacred, if it's the divine, it's lots of lovely words about it. The source, the God, will always is always there. It's beyond but even comprehension for me. But I know it's there, and I can. When I'm not in that flow, then it's because of something that's going on in me, not the flow. The flow hasn't bypassed my house. This energy that goes around. Oh, we'll just miss this house for today. Although I can feel like that. I can
Yeah.
feel like that. Could you imagine? There's people probably sitting right now in their bed. I work with them, sitting in their bedrooms thinking, "Fuck, this is just terrible. Life's just and all that." But yeah, if you look out the window and maybe step out your bed and go into outside, it might be there as well. You can find it because you might not find it sometimes just inside yourself because I get tangled up with all my thoughts and memories and things I want to eat or things I want to watch on TV or all these things I want to just do, but to get out the house and just and catch something. Although it's in us already, but we can't access it sometimes. I can't access it sometimes. So nature then is the gift, I think. And if I
Yeah.
can help someone just close their eyes and say and find a way to acknowledge that, because everyone knows that I'm just trying. There's a lovely image of there's one blade of grass in the whole world. Can you imagine just the focus on one blade of grass in the whole planet? The whole planet. There will be one blade of grass that you could look at, and people get it. So yeah, there will be one. Well, there's millions, tons of it, but focus on one, and that's where life is. Just to have one blade of grass, and then look at my life and think, well, all these other things are happening, and I don't know, it can connect me to connect me back to the flow because there's one blade of grass just doing its thing. And I love it. Again, it's the smallest thing, although it has everything in it. So I like that.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, whether it's the overlap of inquiries or just the lovely presence that I experience from you. But so much of what you're saying just resonates, almost from my toes to the top of my hair
Oh,
on my
Mark, this
head.
is great. Yeah, I once wrote the word down because I do a lot of writing, and I wrote the word resonate, but I did a typo or did something, and it looked like it was giving me something. So in the word there was something more with my mistake, and I thought, what else could it be? Resonate, and it looked like, and this is true. It looked like reason to dance. Resonance was reason to dance. Wasn't it? It was resonance. And wouldn't that's a lovely description, lovely metaphor for resonance, is that it gives us a reason to dance. So if someone is sitting in front of me, I've not said this yet, but I might to the next client, think of a reason to dance in your life. Have you ever found that moment where you just wanted to dance? And they can connect to that if they can, connect to it. It's like asking someone, what's your passion? I love that question. What's your passion? And there's no one that's ever said, oh, I don't have a passion. That doesn't happen. They might not have it right now, or they can't get into it, but they will have. They'll remember, oh, when I was a kid, I used to play with sticks. Yeah, they're now
Yeah.
83 years old and they're coming to the end of their life. But yeah, there was a part of them that would get something out of playing with sticks when they were a kid. They'd throw in the water and would come, whatever. There's always something, there's always a part. And these are moments that we experience that we haven't gone. We can connect to them again when we can remember them. We connect right back to it if we're offered that space to explore it in a question.
Absolutely. And there's something I think though that you said that I think for people is often misunderstood in the sense of, okay, if I can't access that sense of the flow of life, that it's somehow, I love this idea of it missing your house. I love the fact though that you're pointing to it as well, the sense that that's continuously present.
Yes,
And I don't know about you, but I sense in at the moment, especially with kind of the explosion of kind of more widely adopted interest in psychology, or even just in various books and so forth. So much of the focus just went on analyzing ourselves rather than noticing the connections between us and the significance of those connections between us. Even just for you to see a fly on your hand,
yes,
to encourage someone to perhaps just go out. Nature could be the gift that brings us back to it. I think there's
Yes.
something really beautiful as well, even in that acknowledgement that it's not to say that suffering or life isn't difficult. Um, it's more a case of, and there's still so much beauty to it. You know, that there's
Yes.
still so much of an invitation to this life,
Yes.
and even not to punish ourselves for the fact that I don't feel in flow with life at the moment. But I think there's a big difference even between that and not not having that
Hmm.
appreciation that this is kind of perpetually in flow, perpetually available to us. And
Yeah.
it's not necessary. It's really not in the kind of the paradigms or the lenses through which we look at it. That, oh, in order for me to feel that flow tomorrow, I've got to do this. I must do a meditation retreat for 10 days,
Yeah.
and maybe I
Yeah.
could catch.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like
We have it right
it's
now. Yeah.
here. Yeah,
Yeah. And someone said, I think it was at I never know what this person, the Buddha, said, but you hear or read things, but apparently he said that the path you're on, know where you're standing is the right path or something. And I love that idea that it's yeah, you find it in the moment, and the now there's something in that moment. Because I was just thinking there that I've got this other image that if someone likes eating apples, so right now I don't have an apple, but if I get one in my hand and I bite an apple, it can be really a nice experience in that moment. But if you can imagine that I'm 63 years old, how many apples I've eaten in my life. If someone was to show me a warehouse full of all the apples that I've to eat, I wouldn't enjoy it. It would be fuck. Look at this mountain of apples. And they said, hey, Mike, you're going to eat all these apples in your life. And you love apples. You really love them. This is why we're giving you all these apples right now. You've got all this stuff. It would be, oh, can you imagine me sitting? I can't imagine. But I don't need to imagine it because I've got the apple in my hand right now. Or not right now. Or even the imaginary
yeah,
apple. I've done that with people. The visualization. Imagine you have an apple in your hand. Taste the thing. And our bodies can respond to that in some way. But yeah, so it's the idea that there are all these things that I might worry about, or every worry that I've ever had. If you look backwards from now, if every worry I ever had was in some sort of form, say it was I don't know, a stone or something, and that would be, if I look back now, I'd see this mountain of all my worries, but I don't have them anymore. But they've been there, but they work through me, but I work through them. And so when something new arrives right now, it's like, wow, meet it. If I can meet it in the context of, and I love again the Buddhist thing that this too will pass. How many worries have you had? 7,000 million worries I've had. Okay. And are you still holding all them? No, I can't remember any of them. Just maybe one. Okay, so this new worry, meet that in that way. And that's the simple thing. But it's not taking away someone's real experience. Right now, they're sitting in front of me upset. It wouldn't be, oh, think about all this. You wouldn't bring that in at that point. But I know that in me. I've got that faith in me. But I don't put it onto them. Maybe I don't even talk about it in that way. I just sit with them and listen and hear them. Because to come in and say, well, I'm listening to you now, but how about this? I mean, that wouldn't work. But there'll be
yeah.
times that maybe there's an awareness to bring something else in, or an observation.
But I sense Mike, what can be happening in some of those moments, especially when it's not accompanied with the words to say, "Oh well, look, you've had all these worries. What's this? But another worry."
Yes.
I'd imagine it's almost your presence is already communicating that, or there's a
Yeah.
spaciousness to the presence or awareness that just allows that to be communicated. Yeah,
Yeah, I like you picking that up because that's a big part of what I think works in that relationship. It's the presence. It's to to be open to that, and sometimes preparing for it before I meet someone. I'm meeting someone today. I've
yeah,
never met them before, but I'll do something in me that's acknowledging acknowledging my anxiety as well. That yeah, I'm going to meet someone. I don't know where we're going to go with this,
yeah,
and then also to hold that for every session. I never know where it'll go with it, but that comes from experience because there was a time I used to try and plan for that, and really in my training it would be getting you're now ready to meet a real person. So That's not taken lightly. That's like, fuck, is there going to be a real human being in front of me? And I've got to meet them. And I remember once, great teachers, the clients, there was an older woman. I was my first sort of client. And I felt I wanted to yawn. And because where I was at that stage, I thought, oh, I can't show her a yawn. She'll think I'm finding her boring, and I was so worried about what was going on. So I was trying to, but I don't know what I did. But she was really a Scottish woman, and she said, "Well, it looks like you're trying to yawn, son. It doesn't matter. Just have a yawn," she said. So she was great. And then there was another, that same woman. I learned from her because I went back to talk to someone about it, and I said that she reminded me of my granny, my grandmother. And this person had a view of that. They said, "Oh, you can't. You've got to disconnect from your granny, and this is another person and everything." And people call it transference or counter-transference. I just thought, no, she just looks at my granny, but I know she's not my granny. So it's like,
Yeah.
what's your problem? She just reminds me of my granny, but she's not my granny. Like,
But
it'd be
this,
different if I thought she was.
but this touches on something I think that I find fundamentally important. When you mentioned the idea of the smile and how significant that can be if it's truly felt,
Yes.
but with this, I think I think we lose so much trust and connection with people, whether you want to define it as a professional or work or just we're all people meeting people essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And the disguising of things, I think, is what creates the uncertainty or that anxiety of what's happening with this person because it doesn't. I think we really feel there's like not even just the resonance, but there's a real energy to what feels like an unfiltered act. Now, unfiltered doesn't mean you can't use discernment, you can't be considerate. I don't mean that. But I think the moment we bring in more tools, or even if there's anxiety, I was in London last week giving a talk with the psychotherapist friend of mine actually, and I was just referencing because we didn't plan what we were going to talk about. We had the overall theme, but we made no plan. I was like, this is the point where I'm feeling that kind of those nerves or that energy or whatever it is. And I think there was a time ago, Mike, where I would have been trying to say to myself, but you're a great speaker, you do this, do you know what I mean? Give this like almost pep talk, but it never did anything. Whereas just a simple acknowledgement of like, I don't know what's
Yeah.
going to happen. That's because then that almost
Yeah.
allows us to see the side of excitement as well that that
Yeah.
are with the nerves or the aliveness of it. But the
Yes.
idea of trying to frame it in a certain way to compartmentalize it and to almost to
I like.
extricate
Yeah.
those feelings from me, I
Yes.
think that's really
Yeah.
problematic.
Yeah. I think that reminds me. Thanks for sharing that story. It reminds me of a story that I was invited to do a talk for over in Norway many years ago. I was working with some students in Edinburgh, and the tutor thought what I was doing was quite interesting, invited me over to Oslo to talk. And this was in 2020. Was it 2020? No, not 2020. 2000, the year 2000, so a long time ago. I'd never spoken in public before, ever. I'd worked in different ways, but I'd never spoken in public in that way. So I was very scared, very nervous. But I knew that they wanted something from me. And so I trusted that whatever I had would be received in some way. But the barrier that I had was my fear, my anxiety. So I went into my thoughts, and I trying to work out what's the barrier, what is it that's getting in the way of me being able to stand up and just talk. And I worked out there was a word and I've said this before in something before, but the word that I thought, or the thought that I had was I would make a mistake. My worry was I'll do something and I'll make a mistake. And then what happened next? They would see me and the word that I got was an asshole. They would see me as an asshole. So that was my biggest fear, that I'd be standing there and they would see me as an asshole. They would say, this guy, Mike Moss, is an asshole because he's done whatever. There's all my stuff. So what I
Yeah.
did with that was I thought I'd stand up and I'd talk about my journey toward of the fear and say, I'm very nervous right now, and what I'm worried about is making mistakes, and that I might do something, and you'll all think I'm an asshole, and then I realised, but I am an asshole, and someone in the audience, true story, shouted out, "I'm an asshole too. I'm an asshole." It was like, I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. So, and that immediately went away, and it allowed me to, because the biggest fear was something would happen that I would think was a mistake. I didn't need to cover it up. I would just,
No.
nothing went wrong anyway, but I knew if something had gone wrong, I just, well, I'm an asshole, but that happens, whatever. So it gave me a sort of
Yeah.
a lightness inside me, a lot of lightness, a lot of, it felt it was important. But again, I used that story talking to some people, and I've used that story on a. I'm on. You can see me online talking about this because somebody filmed me talking about this story later on, and so I'm telling this story, and I've got this flip chart, and so I've written the word asshole on it, so you can see me. You can find me talking about it, and it's got me and this flip chart that's got asshole, and it's almost like there's an arrow pointing at me. So it's funny. And then another part of the story, Mark, is I like words, and I once thought about the word asshole. Soul. Soul. So my journey is from asshole to soul, to finding my soul in that way. And it fits with that wow bit, the boy bending over. And also, another person told me that when we're in the womb, in the embryo, one of the first things that the body makes is the asshole. There's the mouth and the asshole. These are the things that the cells make first. So you've got food coming in, not whatever it is coming in, and then going out the other end. So we're an asshole. That's what life is at the very beginning. Is a mouth and an asshole in the embryo.
I never thought I'd hear such an eloquent play on the word asshole.
So there you go. So that and what I love, because I'm in the business of trying to make a living out of being self-employed. I'm going self-employed more now, and so if anyone wants to look me up, I don't tell them I've got a website. I don't have a website. I just say look up Mike Moss Counselling Asshole, and you'll find me online. And I love that. So I'm not putting anything else in to say Mike Moss, the best counsellor in the world, Mike Moss who does all these theories, and Mike Moss who can do this. It's Mike Moss Asshole. So there you go. And I love that that's
But,
happening.
yeah, but I love it too, but there's something deeply connected about it, I find, and also grounded. And from just speaking with you, and as I say, your sense of presence, but also just some of the things you're pointing to, and some of the simplicity of everything is extraordinary, essentially, and this
Yes.
continual kind of acknowledgement of a flow, but also this sense of awe or wow. Um,
Yeah.
it's I'm gonna find it very hard to say the word wow without thinking of some fellow with a tattoo on his arse now. Um, but even that brings in a laughter with this as well, and this predicament almost to being human. If it doesn't make you laugh, it will kind of
Oh, yeah.
it
Yeah.
will just kind of make us cry a little bit more than it needs to. And
Yeah. No,
look, a
that's a
good
lovely
cry is
point.
a
Yeah.
wonderful thing as well at times. But
Yeah.
there's something to it where there's a whole mix of things that, like almost a sacredness in that transition with the word from asshole to asshole. Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
um, there's something very beautiful and grounded and insightful to it as well.
Yeah. So I like, I don't watch many stand up comedians now, but I have done. And I've even been to some shows, and the best ones just talk about the ordinary. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm thinking of, there was a guy, Billy Connolly, that we liked in Scotland for a long time. And he would just tell the story of just and we'd laugh and laugh because we all recognised ourselves in it. I mean, I don't know any of the, I can't remember any of the stories now, but it's when we can recognise ourselves or feel free, the the power in that. And there's an energy inside us that I think when, I mean, it's not just me saying this, there's theories about it. There's chemicals are released when we laugh and when we smile. There's something in our bodies, we feel something good or better. And there's even chemicals in our body that people have noticed when we feel compassionate to someone else. I remember reading that when you feel compassion, there's something in our, that there's a chemical change in us. And that's a curious thing, but to think that things that are important, our bodies are already, I've got it stored up in us. You know,
Yeah.
we've got this thing called the potential. And I love the idea of potential as again, another learned from another client, a young person many years ago. He was the smallest boy in his class, in the year. Uh, and he came to me and the teachers, this before I was a counsellor, and the teachers had written stuff that he's not reaching his potential. And I thought, I'll be smart and I'll say, do you know what potential means? You know, I'll ask him, do you know what the word potential? He was young, 12 years old. And he called himself the smallest boy in the year because he was very short. And I said to him, do you know what potential means? He said, oh yeah, I know what potential is, Mike. It's stored up energy. And I thought, oh. He said, yeah, I've got it from science. Potential energy, stored up energy. And I'm not a scientist. I didn't like science at school. The science block smelled too much of burnt sugar, so I'd never go in. But it was suddenly that changed my whole perception. I thought the potential, because my whole thing was about we all have this potential. I've got potential. You have a potential, and to think of it already in us,
Yeah.
stored up inside. It's another way of looking at it. So I'm standing at the stage, not wanting to go on to speak because I'm nervous, but I have the potential to do that, to go in and do it. So there's something in that energy because people have put me in that place. They've said, Mike, can you come and do a talk? Can you do this? They've flown me over. So I'm ready. I have the potential to talk. So there's something in that. So I found a way to release that potential, and it was finding the word asshole or whatever. So but I love that potential's in everybody. We all have the potential. So the baby that was born as Mike or Michael in 1961 had the potential to be me. And I know that's a fact because I'm here. So to look at the journey in a way that there's a trustingness about it, it's going forward. Everything goes forward. There's someone called Eugene Gendlin that talks about this. He's not here, and he died a few years ago. But he looked at this idea of life is always going forward. Everything is always going forward towards growth. And I like that.
This is something I think about a lot with there's many group conversations that I host. There's obviously many people I've interviewed and different people I work with in different capacities. But I think this is one of the fundamental flaws almost in how we interpret even a lot of ideas around self development. Um, you're using the word potential. A word that has kind of come across my radar a lot is the sense that people don't feel that they're enough, and it's something
Yes.
that they have to
Yes.
reach for, or it's something. I almost kind of laugh at the notion now, not in a dismissive way of someone's relationship with it, but where
No.
is this piece of you that's going to be make you enough? Is it like floating around in the ether, or is it already a part of you? And I just like the idea that life is in flow. Just like you're saying there, that life seems to have an orientation towards growth.
Yes.
I really think that sense of having some sense or felt experience of that potential already exists within you, or that sense of enoughness, or that
Yeah.
experience of enoughness exists already, I think is fundamentally different than kind of burning ourselves out or
Yeah.
charging towards
And
something that won't fulfill that promise.
and I like the idea that it's we can't argue with that. If someone is, it was the idea that I might be speaking to someone that wants to kill themselves. But if they're sitting in the chair in front of me, they're not killing themselves at that moment. And that's a fact. That's an absolute fact. So I love the absolute fact that you're here right now. So something brings you here. I don't know what that something is, but something has brought you here. And there's many people that do kill themselves that I have no contact with, or they have no contact with the support in ways in that way. But if you have got contact with someone who's talking about that, then they're not dead yet, if you like. They still have potential for life, I just love that that's a fact, a clear fact. We can't help. I can't help the people that have died with suicide, but if someone's sitting talking to me about it, then there's a potential of help, and it's just so clear that fact. Someone is it says they can't cope, but there's something that they've done that they've. If they're talking about that, they're doing something that's coping. It might be very minimal, but there's something that you have coped because you've put your clothes on and you've come out. You've got on a bus. And you're sitting in front of me. So there's something in that, and so it's to look at the extra of that, like rather than saying, "Oh yeah, my journey is just this is what's happened, and I'm feeling really bad." To look around that and say, "Well, there's a lot more in there. You've got your sight, you've got your breath, you've got your fingers, you've got this something going on in your whole body. You're you're part of this universal thing. The whole universe is happening right now. I mean, whether I say that to them or not, but it's this what I believe because
You
it's
know,
fact.
yeah, there's definitely a sense of speaking with you, Mike, of just that, like, not dismissing the immediate human experience, but I know you mentioned potential faith or connection to something bigger than ourselves,
Mhm.
but and this is something I feel in my own life, just some acknowledgement of the breadth of existence, whether that's on a scientific level, a spiritual level, just even an awareness that some mornings when I'm walking my dog and I see that the sun and the moon are present in the sky, and I'm kind of
Yeah.
like, this is incredible. Like, we are actually on this planet that we sometimes conceptualize.
Yes.
This is actually it.
This is actually. I love that. This is actually it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
And with that, like, it there's definitely, I don't know, it feels like we've just kind of zoomed in on too small, like, we've zoomed in on ourselves almost in this disconnected
Yeah.
state, like, or this separate state,
Yeah.
which, some analysis to some degree will obviously can be extremely illuminating. I know that from my own experience of therapy. And at the
Yeah.
same time too, if it's too much in isolation from everything
Yes.
else, and our problems become too much in
Yeah.
isolation, we can almost forget that it's natural to feel anxiety, even over something you've chosen, like speaking.
Yeah.
Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, or an
Yeah.
invitation you've accepted.
Yeah.
That is just it's part of
Yeah.
this too.
Yeah. And I like what you've said. It's made me think about the inner journey because I think it's when we go in. If all we do is when we go in is just look at our lives, we're missing something because when we go inside, we're looking at the universe. I believe all the chemicals that make me and make you are connected to this thing and this vastness. So to go inside isn't to be isolated from that. It's to, in fact, there's an expansiveness on going inside. Because if I just look outside, there's a woman, a lovely, great woman, Caroline Mace. I don't know if you've come across her, but she talks about the view that we have. It's like lots of different floors in a building. If we just stay at the first floor, the ground floor, looking out at the world, we just see what's around us, and that's a perception, and that's right that we have that perception. But we can get caught in that because if we can go up another
Mm.
level or another level or another level, we see more than just our partner. We see our neighbourhood. We see more. So looking at things more from a different perspective, and I love that idea that when I can go inside, I see more. I don't see less. And when I look
Yeah,
outside, I also see me. I'm connected to that moon and that star and that thing as well. So I love that the expansiveness of in a way. And there was a guy, it was Carl Sagan, who wrote this book about the pale dot. It was the Voyager camera many years ago was going to Mars, and it took a picture of the Earth as a pale blue dot, and that really transformed my thinking. I thought, yeah, whenever I'm thinking about me in as me, I'm also on a pale blue dot floating around this vast universe or universes. And I tell some young people that. And I told this girl this that I was working with many years ago that was she was wanted to be a painter, an artist, but she didn't come from a family where that had ever been sort of encouraged. But we talked about painting and everything, and there was a wall, there was a big white wall in the room that we were in, and I said, you know, some people go to college, art college, in Edinburgh Art College, and they paint things as much as this wall. And she was in awe to think it was a huge wall. Like, people do that, paint that size. So she loved working with me just because I'd given her something that she hadn't thought about. But when I told her about the pale blue dot, she loved that as well, that you're looking at the world from uh, whatever's happening on this world, it's all happening, and it's only ever happened on all the history of the world on a pale blue dot. So when young people ask me, what's the point? What's the fucking point? It's, I do a little dot. And I say, that's the point. Do you want to hear more? And I tell them about the pale blue dot. And they love it. And this girl, to finish the story, this girl, when we finished working, she did a painting for me. And I've got it. It's a beautiful painting of me and her sitting on a bench with my hand pointing up to the pale blue dot. We're on Mars, pointing up to the pale blue dot, and we've both got space helmets on. And it's lovely. And she told me she'd painted it. She didn't have any paintbrushes at home, so she used her makeup brushes to paint the painting. So it was beautiful. And I forgot that. So that's I love that story.
That's absolutely gorgeous. Mike, just glancing at the time there
Oh, yes.
and
Wow.
kind of thinking back on even where the conversation began with this notion of the breath before the last breath, which is something I think I'll just sit with that expression for a little while after this conversation. And what do you want to become aware of, and the sense
Yeah.
a sense of wow, the extraordinary and the ordinary, and talking about even this lady who's contemplating stepping in front of a bus, who just caught a smile from the bus
Yeah.
driver, and the effect that had. Yourself even questioning what is this all about, and a fly landing on your hand, and that
Mm.
being all that you needed in that
Yeah.
particular moment. Your own the simplicity of just even working with younger people and just acknowledging who they are as people, and the significance that creates. Some gorgeous ideas around even the warehouse full of apples, or the
Yeah. I
mountain
love.
full of stones, or worries. Ideas of just getting comfortable with what is, even in terms of exploring our own anxieties and naming them, and being with these
Mm-hmm.
and acknowledging these strains, rather than resisting all of these things. And just this consistent beautiful inquiry, I think, into just what it is to be here now, and what it is to live this life, and to acknowledge the wider context of it, the wider flows that we are simply a part of. I'd be really intrigued, Mike, to hear your response to the question of what is a good life for you.
Well, right now it's hearing you talk about all these things I've spoke about. Honestly, right now, this is a good life. I'm sitting here at 5:10 in my house in Edinburgh, speaking to you, Mark, and you've just summed up beautifully. You've said some beautiful things, and I've not planned what I've been saying, so it's new. Well, not that new. It's some old stuff, but I hadn't planned it. So to hear it all brought back in a beautiful way that you've done that, a good life is right now, sitting talking to you. Honestly, I mean, I've got there's millions of other things, but it's yeah, it feels good right now.
Mike, I've felt that numerous times in this conversation, and even that idea of resonate and reason to dance. And I
Yeah,
think that response of yours sums it all up perfectly. Like, because if I think it is only not only, I don't want to be too kind of reductive about it, but it is an acknowledging or noticing it here and now. And a bit like what
yeah,
you said earlier about theories falling apart if they don't apply to the situation right now, or if it doesn't
yeah.
work
Used
in
to be,
contact with
yeah,
reality or humanity. So no, I think that's an absolutely gorgeous
yeah.
response, and very fitting of the
And it's
conversation.
and because I can feel the flow in us, Mark. That's the flow. It's not missed my house. I love that. I just thought about that today, but it's not missed my house.
Yeah.
But it's here right now. We've engaged in it. And my body says it, and my body feels it.
Mike, thank you so much for joining us on the What is a Good Life podcast today. I had a feeling it might be like this, and I'm very grateful it was. But I've enjoyed this conversation immensely. I
Yeah.
look forward to continuing to follow your work and
Oh,
hopefully
yeah.
speaking again.
Just look it up Mike Moss Counselling Asshole. Worldwide.
Perfect.
www. Yeah, the W, instead of WW, is WOW. Dot.
Stop.
W.